basic style of feeder used on still waters and slow moving rivers is one called an open-ended feeder. It looks like this. This is a really traditional style. It's got a lead strip on the back which basically helps you to cast it and pins the feeder down to the bottom. It's essentially a cylinder with a hole at either end and some other holes drilled into it to allow the water to attack the bait that you put inside, particularly ground bait, which is what this feeder is designed to be fished with. Now, the size of the feeder and the amount of weight you use should be dictated by the distance that you have to cast and any other factors like flow or undertow. Obviously, the more flow there is, the more undertow, the more weight you need to hold the bottom. You should always choose a feeder that you can comfortably cast the distance that you want to go and will comfortably hold the bottom. Generally on still waters you don't need to use a big heavy feeder to hold the bottom because the water is still. You will get some waters however where there is water movement and you might need to up the weight a bit. So your choice of swim feeder on a still water is essentially how far you need to cast. The further you need to cast, the heavier the feeder you're going to have to use. But that's the basic model and I'm going to show you later how it's filled up and why it looks like it does. The other style, which is very similar, is this one. This is what we call a cage feeder. Now the cage feeder allows water to attack the ground bait inside much more quickly. As you can see, it is a cage, it's still a cylinder shape, it's still got the lead strip on the bottom, but it's much more open. Now this feeder would be particularly good in shallow water, maybe up to 7 or 8 feet deep. Anything more than that and you're going to get problems because the bait's probably going to explode out the feeder before it hits the bottom. So it's quite a specialised feeder, but nonetheless on shallow waters for general ground bait fishing is very, very effective. And these are the two basic styles that we use. This is how I've set the feeder up. You can make this as complicated or as easy as you like. There are loads of rigs in fishing. This one works. It's dead simple to do, and I like that. You'll notice I'm using the basic open-ended feeder today. Why? Well, the water out in front of me is around about 15 to 18 feet deep. So if I use the cage feeder, the ground bait I put in it is likely to explode out of the feeder before it hits the bottom. I don't want that because I'm fishing for carp. And the whole idea of a feeder is that you get some bait down on the deck. So it's the basic open-ended model today, which will release its contents slightly more slowly. So how have I set it up? Well, it's really simple. This feeder's running up and down on the line. You can see that the feeder has got a short link of power gum and a small swivel attached to it. There are lots of different types of ways of attaching the feeder, but essentially this mechanism always remains the same. So it runs up and down on the main line. The main line's threaded through the eye of the swivel. Below that we've got a bead. The bead protects the knot at the bottom, stops it getting damaged, and it also creates a kind of mini boom or standoff effect which cuts down on tangles when you're casting. Below that we've got a swivel to connect to our hook link, which can be 6 or 8 pounds, and then we've got our hook bait connected to a size 8 hook. It's a drilled out pellet, and that's ideal for the carp that we're trying to target here. What I don't want to do is to get too much into the merits of different hook baits and hooking arrangements. This is essentially a kind of cut down carp rig at the business end, and if you buy our DVD folks on how to carp fish, you'll find out exactly how to set up this knotless knot arrangement. But the important thing is to realise you can use all sorts of baits and hook baits for feeder fishing. You can side hook baits, you can hair rig baits, it doesn't really matter. It's the way that you fish the feeder that gets the feeder working that really counts. So we're not going to get hung up on hook baits, but suffice to say the hook bait I'm using is driven by the baits that I'm going to be putting in the feeder. You can use all kinds of baits for swim feeder fishing. The list is almost endless. Today I'm going for carp, so I'm going all out for those big fish and I've geared up accordingly. This is my ground bait. Most important thing you've got to know about fishing with an open-ended swim feeder is you must have ground bait. Can't do it without it. The one I've chosen today is by Dynamite Baits. It's a very good ground bait actually. It's a marine pellet ground bait. It's ground down pellet with a few other additives. I should point out that I'm actually paid as a consultant by Dynamite Baits, which in no way influences my decision. Of course it does, but this is an exceptional bait actually. I've caught an awful lot of fish with it, and you're going to see it in action today. What do I use to go with it? Well, I've got some halibut pellets, again another Dynamite product. I've got them in different sizes. This is just one bag, but I've got some mixed halibut pellets here with me of different sizes, and I've got boilies. Now, all of the lines between what were considered match fishing techniques and big carp techniques have become very blurred over recent years. You'll find match anglers using pellets and fishy ground baits and boilies, and you'll find big fish anglers using ground baits and other methods that matchmen were using sort of 10 years ago. So the whole thing's got kind of rolled together. Carp are carp, and they love to eat pellets and boilies, so that's why we're going to use them.